Welcome back, everybody, to episode 18, part 1 of the Sandyton build series. We are going to start off the barracks with a little discussion. I don't have things quite finished and ready for you yet, but you can see that I've been hard at work. I've made 3 different versions of the barracks here. This one is a little bit more traditional. It's got an individual tower that's set aside, and these also would. I just never got that far. But you can see it looks more like standard. This one's more of a tower, and this one is kind of a squat tower, and each one of these has its drawbacks, but let's start off first with our tower here. So our requirements for a barracks tower are pretty simple. It must be rotatable. You cannot mirror a barracks tower. And really, when we're talking about the barracks and the barracks towers, we're talking about parent-child schematics. So all of these rules or guidelines or ideas that I've got to share with you guys for the barracks and the barracks tower applies to parent-child schematics. So we have our tower here, and this is perfect because it is rotatable, and you can see that over here. If we check this, there is a ladder. We rotate it 90 degrees counterclockwise, and we end up with a ladder there. This one is actually placed on the same orientation, and this one has been rotated 180 degrees so that the ladder faces that direction now. The reason this barracks is over here, and this was my first version, that was the second, that was the third. Each one has its own ideas behind it, but I kind of abandoned this one because I looked at this little space and wasn't terribly happy with it. So I tried again, and I thought it'd be really neat to make this kind of stepping tower. And this one would have worked, except that I abandoned it because I didn't particularly like the direction I was going for moving through the tower. But you can see that we have our 5 beds in here, built as bunk beds. The good news is that the barracks, none of the guards actually sleep at the barracks, so our rules for having 2 clear blocks above a bed are a little bit lax. That is to say that this should work. The guards, I believe, will check and make sure that they have a bed, but they'll never actually use it in sleep, so they don't need to worry about having, you know, the space to get out of bed and move on, and that's what the mod checks for, generally, for things like the house or the tavern. And you can see each one of these is rotated, and that's just fine. The big problem is that I got up here, and I built this little staircase in the back. Was going to take it all the way up the back, but I didn't like that, and then just couldn't quite figure out a decent way to move throughout the tower. You know, there's another level there, and another level there, and then of course we have the very top of the tower. But we abandoned it. This one has a different problem. I figured out how to move throughout this tower, and it's kind of fun because it's a labyrinth and kind of annoying at the same time. But the problem with this is that it is not rotatable. These towers are not big enough to house 5 beds like these are. If I tried to move the beds up a level, so I had beds down here, beds up here, when you go to rotate this tower, it doesn't work because all sides are not the same. So that's why this was thrown out. But the good news is that we can always use these for something else if I feel like it. I don't necessarily have to give you access to the top of the tower. I just like making usable things. So let's go ahead and jump on over here, and we'll talk about our finished barracks and barracks towers product. You can see it here. There's my tower that was the prototype over there. I've changed it up a little bit, added a cloth awning over the top of the tower. And I think it turned out pretty well. It looks kind of neat. From each of the sides, you get just through towers there. There's this kind of interesting little colonnade there in the back of the keep or castle, whichever way you want to look at this thing. and the sides, and just the way you move around in it is a little bit different. You can see I've got the interior done. Now, where I am on this is that I need to break down all the levels. As you can see, I can't walk and talk at the same time. I need to break down all the levels, and that is going to be another video so that I can describe that process to you, because we have two options when it comes to building the barracks in our colony. So let's go ahead and jump on over to here. And this is what our barracks looks like as its own schematic, right? Without the towers in place. And I will have to copy and paste these towers into place over here. It's going to be a total pain in the rear end because of the way Minecolonies works. But to start off with, our first option, when the builder will be building our barracks in the game, is he will build the barracks at the same, or the towers at the same time as the barracks, right? That's our first option. He will build the complete building all together. Option number 2 is the original way that the barracks and towers were designed to work, in that the player will initiate the build or upgrade on the barracks. And then once that is complete, you have to come back over here and you can then initiate the building or upgrading of each individual tower. So it's a 2-step process versus a 1-step process of just saying upgrade the barracks and all the towers upgrade with it. Now we're going to go with option 1. I'm going to have these towers upgrade with the barracks because of possibly dumb design choice, or at least a design choice that made my life a little bit more difficult than it needed to be. Our entrance into the tower is on the 2nd floor instead of the 1st. So you can see that the barracks itself, all of these walkways were designed for that tower in mind. If I wanted to change that tower and move the entrance to the bottom floor, which would probably make it a little bit easier, I would have to redesign the whole interior of the barracks, possibly just redesign the whole barracks entirely, which I'm calling this central structure the barracks. The rest of this is a landscape form that you might have seen over there that I made for this, so that when you build the first level of the barracks, it's going to look like you're building it on an outcrop of stone coming up out of the desert. But anyways, that is pretty much it for our discussion today. We are gonna do a follow-up video here once I start to build all of these levels. And I will probably record all of that, and I will speed it up when I'm just working, and then when I've got something to talk about, I'll slow it down. We'll talk about what I'm doing and why, and then we'll speed it up again, and we'll go ahead and work through leveling the barracks down and how we need to properly do that so that it all works in game, because parent-child schematics are very specific, and if you don't do it right, it's not going to work for you. It's not going to tell you why it isn't working, and you're going to be hating life. But anyways, thank you for joining me. I hope you all enjoyed this little bit of a video here. I look forward to seeing you in the next video here. Hopefully I'll have that out for you tomorrow. I'm going to get to work on leveling these structures down. Have any questions or comments, leave those down below, and maybe I will address them in part 3, maybe? I'm not sure if I'll be able to answer questions, or maybe I can just do a follow-up video in part 2 that answers some of your questions, if you've got any. As I'll be probably working on that tomorrow. But anyways, y'all have a great time. Thank you for joining me, and bye-bye.